Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
Happy Thorsday
Football.
to all who celebrate. Our guy Thor Nystrom from Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life. He's an expert in all things fantasy football. If you like to place wagers on football, if you like the draft or the Minnesota Vikings, Thor is an all-encompassing football aficionado here. And we will get to his thoughts on week one. We'll do Thor's college football junkie thing to watch for Vikings fans this weekend. But Dex, we got another game tonight. Underdog, tell the audience. You're doing pretty well lately, by the way.
I am doing pretty well. I don't know how long this is going to last, but I'm riding this heater for as long as I possibly can. I made a Thursday night football one, and I just actually got another one in. I got another one in for Sunday. Okay, there was another token. There's a 30% token boost to your pick'em slips right now for the next 12 hours on Underdog. So I'm going to ride the Aaron Jones touchdown train again. Vulture protection for Ty Chandler. I'm also going to ride I'm a Brock Purdy stan. Everyone always says he's overrated. I stand for Brock Purdy, okay? And these cornerbacks, I don't know. I don't know how well they're going to do against the 49ers offensive weapon. So I'll ride the touchdown props. And then JJ with the 25 reception. Come on. That seems like just a best possible option for the hire on that. So Underdog Fantasy, promo code SCORE gets you a 50% deposit match. Go download the Underdog Fantasy app and show us those slips.
Yeah. Thor, what was your favorite thing about the Vikings' first 3-score victory in 5 years?
The way that the defense looked in an opener on the road. And yeah, it's a trash offense. We all agree with that against the Giants there, but the defense looked incredible. And then I've been getting a kick out of this week. The Vikings said they were starting to feel sorry for Daniel Jones. I was starting to feel sorry for Daniel Jones during that game. The Vikings didn't even, Brian Flores did, what's the old Milton Berle quote? I'm not even going to say it, but he didn't even have to show that much. Brian Flores did in that game. That the blitz packages were not quite as aggressive as usual because they didn't need it to dominate that team. Only the 6 points and then 3 were gift wrapped by the CJ Ham fumble. Incredible performance by the defense.
What impressed you the most defensively about the scheme compared to last year, too? Because they definitely have, and this was, we talked about this quite a bit previously, but Thor, when you look at the scheme, right, and you look at the personnel, it's definitely been altered and changed. What did you like the most about what you saw that Brian Flores could do this time around that he probably couldn't do a year ago early in the season, at least?
I think the access to more talent, it was the thing that, for the first game, Van Ginkel was incredible. Grenard was incredible, was disruptive. And the front seven overall had itself a day, including Harrison Phillips. Having that more talent on hand, I think it's going to allow Brian Flores in game scripts that are closer than this, because this one was a laugher by halftime or so. Right. You're going to see more of the exotic stuff from Flores, the flipping of between the 0 blitzes and then the dropping 8, getting more creative. You just didn't have to do it in this game.
Yeah, this is 0 blitzes. I'll hit you with the football sound.
0 blitzes. Yep.
That one right there. Yeah, it is, man. It's fun to watch that dude cook. And, the pick 6. And by the way, if you guys missed it, so Trenches with Boone, film breakdowns are back. Boone had to travel for some family reasons this week. So we had Jeremiah Searles fill in for week 1. People are ripping Boone already. He's already taking Tuesdays off first week, huh? Boone will mix in. And we got Jeremiah, a career backup offensive lineman, knows how to step in at the last minute. But he did a great breakdown of the Van Ginkel pick 6. And again, he explains it way better than I could because he played in the NFL for years. But it was a combination of a well-schemed defense in that the Vikings brought the 2 middle linebackers up into the Mike Zimmer sort of double A-gap look. And the Giants had 4 wide receivers bunched to the right, and the Vikings only had 3 defensive backs. So Daniel Jones is like, well, okay, well, either I've got a mismatch, and if I don't, Van Ginkel's probably the one that drops back into coverage here. So I'm pretty good to just throw the ball right out there because Van Ginkel's going to drop back into coverage and whatever. But what Van Ginkel did a great job of was he kept his distance from the right tackle. So great scheme, but then individually, Van Ginkel, instead of rushing the passer and getting into the right tackle and not being, maybe the right tackle gets his hands on him and now you can't jump. He rushed up the field, keeping distance so that he could jump up free of an offensive lineman impeding him and picked up. Like, it was scheme, individual heads up play. And I'm just, if Van Ginkel's foot can hold up, I'm so curious to see what a bunch of smart players with one of the best defensive coordinators can do over the course of this schedule.
That's the thing. You made a bunch of smart free agent signings, and in the draft, you helped fortify that thing. The talent level coming up there, and you can do all these different things. And again, it was more vanilla in this one just because of the way the game script went later on. But you're going to see more and more of that going forward. But having that depth in the safety room that we've talked about in past episodes, having the linebacker core now better, the edge rushers, all the different guys you can toss there. We're going to see a lot of creativity from Brian Flores this year. And the ceiling of that defense, obviously, it's at least higher than I thought heading in. Very impressive performance.
And this also comes back to the discussion of personnel, too, here, because now if teams obviously are going to see what Van Ginkel did, so they're going to try to take that opportunity away. Well, this is where perhaps Grenard or Turner step in. This is the thing about, it's not just depth, it's quality depth that can also do what the defensive coordinator wants, right? Like I can't tell you how impressive what Flores did for most of 2023 was, because he didn't have that. He was like basically making it up as he went, designing a college type scheme, or taking a scheme from the Pitt Panthers, because they didn't have what they necessarily wanted for their defensive stew. Now they're sort of trending towards that, right? So, okay, Van Ginkel, you're going to take him away. Okay, that's cool. Grenard's going to beat you or help, right? Turner's going. So I just think the amount of change-ups and counter-punches that Flores can throw now to teams that identify things that they think that they can beat are cut way, way down compared to last December. Teams had basically figured it out, right, Thor? So it's like, okay, we saw what you did, and it's really creative, but we can beat that. Because of the personnel now, my contention is it becomes tougher to adjust and beat those things.
1,000%. Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned last year, it was all the magic, you could say smoke and mirrors the other way. Exactly. Initially to make up for that lack of talent there. The talent level has already come up. And the scary thing to think about when you think about the future, all that cap space that the Vikings are going to have this offseason, plus before we thought maybe a top 10 pick. Now it doesn't look like a bottom 10 team in the NFL. We'll see what that pick is.
Look how quick Thor changed his
They're already pulling me back in. But like the point to make there is next year, the 2025 NFL draft is absolutely stacked in defenders. So Florida is going to get even more going forward. But yeah, this year you're already seeing it with the tide coming up a little bit with the talent, what he can do there. So yeah, Judd, to your point, it's not just going to be later in the season offensive coordinators figuring out sort of the smoke and mirror thing, because now you have the personnel backing it up as well.
Are you calling for the flag, Thor?
I'm calling for the flag.
Are you calling for the flag?
Packers haven't won yet. The Vikings haven't lost yet.
Today.
The world has restored the order.
The flag agreed to work today.
Order has been restored.
Boy,
that's a t-shirt.
I mean, okay, well, Malik Willis. Now the Packers are trying to make it seem like Jordan Love is he's gonna, and they didn't put him on short-term IR. I think Malik Willis is gonna start here, but Malik Willis has thrown maybe 65 or 70 career passes, only 12 first downs, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Wildly talented in terms of measurements coming out of college, but if the Packers have to roll with, let's say, Malik Willis if you're a Vikings fan, hope through at least week 4 so that you can face Malik Willis at Lambeau Field instead of Jordan Love. But yeah, how does this alter the division and maybe the Vikings season?
I couldn't believe when someone I was on a show on Monday, and before we got live on it, someone told me that the Packers now had the exact same odds to win the NFC North as the Vikings did. And you have to sort of blink your eyes and get your head around on it for a second. But yeah, I mean, like, obviously, it's not just that the quality of the quarterback play goes down. It's that you have to change the constitution of the Green Bay offense with that change. Malik Willis, you mentioned it, wildly talented. He's a ridiculous athlete. He has a big-time arm. but he has not yet been able to sit back in the pocket, survey the defense, and make the decisions, go across his progressions. You see mistakes there. He's a beat behind. He needs to see the guy open. That has not progressed yet. And the Packers, they have that deep receiving core. But if Malik Willis, he needs to see the guy wide open before he throws it. You're already too late in the NFL. The Green Bay is gonna have to skew more run heavy when he's in there, and they're gonna have to hope and pray that Malik Willis has gotten better at reading defenses.
And can you guys, starting with the fact that I agree with Phil, he'll almost certainly play on Sunday. Can you guys imagine the looks that he is going to get defensively? Like, they are going to confuse, because that's the thing is, you can look good in the exhibition games and that's all great, but teams are basically as bland as possible, right? So, like, he's going to start, and my God, if he gets to Flores is going to design some looks that he's going to completely be flustered by. So I also think in this case too, something not to sleep on about the Packers, if Love is out, is this. They have a deep receiver core, but they really don't have a one. Like, there's not a main guy. Well, Jordan Love, I think, is at the point of his career where that works because he can, spread the ball around. Malik is going to be trying to identify or look for whom, because he's going to need help. He's not going to your point, Thor, deduce what the defense is doing, go to his third read. So I think that this could be a real issue just as far as him being tested from a mental standpoint.
That's it, yeah. And they need the brain trust there on offense for Green Bay. They need to figure something out that's going to work for him. But you're totally right. Think about it from the Vikings perspective. Last year, Cousins goes down. That when Nick Mullins came in, you at least had the Justin Jefferson thing. If nothing else on a play, just toss it up to him. He's double teamed, toss it up. He's going to, we got a decent shot of him coming down with the ball. And they were able to generate offense that way. The Packers, yes, they have the 4 solid receivers, and they have a couple tight ends, but there's no singular talent there where when a play devolves, just toss it up to that dude. I totally agree with you. I'm very curious to see how the Packers come out and what their offensive scheme and the strategy there looks like with Malik Willis under center.
Yeah. Hey, can we let's spend some time on Sam Darnold here. So we finally got to see the car out of the garage here against an actual NFL opponent in air quotes, but it's a road game. The Giants, they got Brian Burns up front. You got some players there, Kayvon Thibodeau, and he comes out. And I think at the end of the week, Brock Purdy wound up having a higher PFF grade after the Monday game, but it was Purdy, Sam Darnold, and Patrick Mahomes were the top 3 graded quarterbacks on Pro Football Focus. And
get that flag out again.
Judd,
hold on.
You heard the man.
Flag's
You heard the man.
Flag's working.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Preparation. Woo! There you go.
And it's funny, I saw some Jets and even Giants fans pop up in my Twitter feed when I put that PFF nugget out earlier this week. We'll wait for it with Darnold. I don't think people understand how unlucky Sam Darnold was his first 2 years in the NFL with the Jets. And Thor, you've been scouting, go back like a decade plus. You've been analyzing every single hundreds of players coming out of college. Can you think of a quarterback, like a first-round quarterback, that got put in a worse situation? So 2018 rookie season, head coach Todd Bowles, who's doing a good job in Tampa now, but this was his first time around. 4 wins the previous season, defensive guy on the hot seat with the Jets. His priority wasn't spend a bunch of time developing a quarterback. It was, how do I save my job, lean into defense? Offensive coordinator Jeremy Bates got fired immediately after the season, completely out of the NFL since 2018. And his top weapons were Robbie Anderson, now named Robbie Chosen, and Jermaine Kearse. So the organization decides, oh boy, that was a disaster. Let's fire everybody and give Sam Darnold a fresh start in 2019. We can all agree, hey, that's on us. We screwed that up. Sam, we'll do right by you. We're going to get you Adam Gase as your new head coach going into year 2, out of football since 2020. And your new offensive coordinator is going to be Dole Logans, who got fired after the season and became the tight ends coach at Arkansas. Like, he was so unqualified to be an NFL offensive coordinator. He became the tight ends coach at Arkansas, and the top wide receiver target was Jamison Crowder. I mean, Dude, that is the worst situation for any top quarterback pick in my at least last 15 years watching football.
Yeah, and thinking back on it, I don't know many that are worse. Especially when you have to get tossed in right away, and then you don't have the playmakers around you, so you have to be the guy who's raising everyone else's level, and you're doing it with a brain trust that has no brain cells in both cases there. And then when at Carolina, it was a thing where now Matt Rule is fighting for his job, and they had very little offensive talent there as well. Another defensive leaning coach. This is a totally different scenario, and it's with people that seem to have a better understanding of Sam Darnold's game as well. So you have the personnel around him, you have the play caller. And then, the thing to go into the week 1 game, a couple of things that were super impressive. The Giants, where it would have projected to give Sam problems, it was the pass rush. The Giants have one of the better defensive lines in the entire NFL. Both of the edge rushers are studs. This was both a credit to Sam. It was certainly a credit to the offensive tackles the Vikings have, and then the play calling as well. I thought those two nasty edge rushers that the Giants have, Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau, held to one pressure between them over that entire game. The offensive line held up there. And then again, you're not leaving Sam back there to just get picked off by the pass rush there where they can pin their ears back. Really clever play calling, and Sam played really well. And the tackles, you got to tip your hat to the Vikings 2 tackles. Is there a better combo in the league? Just shutting down those 2 stud edge rushers.
Happy right now.
It's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Great. So let's also go back and trace sort of Sam's path here, okay? Because it's being talked about now because of the upcoming game against San Fran on Sunday. But I don't think the Vikings signed Darnold without the year stop, in which he started one game with Shanahan in San Fran, and here's why. I think a lot of the fundamental things that Darnold is improved on, including footwork, which in this system's enormous, right? His footwork was crap. And by the way, always had a good arm, but didn't necessarily throw a great deep ball previously. And this is the one thing I love about when a guy like this gets a year sort of off, but it's not off. It's just mental.
Yeah.
I think the Shanahan work and the McVay/O'Connell system is close enough. Like it's all from the same tree. The branches might be different. But I think that is a huge factor here on why O'Connell could basically school and help out Darnold. And Thor, to your point too, and O'Connell won't talk about this much, but I think one of the biggest stories of this game, at least, was play calling.
Yeah.
And I don't know, for as much as O'Connell milked a lot of success from Kirk, I don't know we've ever seen him call as good of an on-point game as we saw Sunday. It was picture perfect for the guy that he is calling the plays for, I thought.
For sure. Yeah, and we'll see what Mr. Kirk Cousins does out of that system going forward. I don't want to make too much of it. It was just his first game, but Cousins didn't look good. O'Connell, the offenses that he has overseen here going back years now, the quarterbacks always have some of their best career seasons under him. The play calling speaks to that, the situations they put him in, and then, of course, inside the building, the work that they do. To your point about Sam last season in San Francisco, that was a reset year for him, a badly needed reset year after the ridiculousness he went through at the beginning of his career. Sort of gets that year to get back to factory settings there. And now coming over to the Vikings in a much better situation where you're going to put him in a position to succeed. And you're not going to make him be like, you need to go out there and win us games. If that's a scenario for, in any game this year, it's obviously not good for the Vikings, but that's not what you're going into any of these games with. You have that whole offensive scheme that is built around him, and then the personnel on hand and go, trying to drive into what Sam's positives are and the strengths of his game, and then mitigate those things where we know reliably there's weaknesses. The thing we talked about last week with the pressure. It's why it was so important that the Vikings offensive line played as well as it did against one of the NFL's best defensive fronts.
And Phil, I am in no way, shape, or form comparing these two players, but the poster child way back when.
Hold on, before you say anything, whatever Judd says, just know that he is directly comparing the two things he's about to say.
30 plus years ago, the poster child for what you are talking about was a quarterback out of BYU named Steve Young. Steve Young signed with the LA Express of the USFL. He had been drafted by Tampa. And if you guys remember, he went to Tampa and was horrendous. It was a gong show.
Yeah.
And then he went to San Fran and sat behind Montana and learned. But he also had a ton of talent then. Like he is the poster child for, if he had been left in Tampa, he probably washes out quickly. He's probably just donezo. And he's a backup or he's a starter, but he's not that great. But I mean, that is what can happen when you go from incompetent to competent.
Well, yeah, and to that, I mean, Steve Young would obviously be
And
an
I'm not
amazing.
saying Steve Young.
Yeah,
okay?
no, I mean you did,
don't
but
know.
that's fine. No, yeah.
Aggregators. This is not Steve Young.
But to the point about Steve Young, I feel like today's NFL, and if I could sound old and get on my high horse, today's society even doesn't leave a lot of room for the possibility of a Steve Young. Or name it like a Rich Gannon, for instance, who, I know Thor was comparing J.J. McCarthy to Rich Gannon, where a guy maybe kind of flames out early. I mean, Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith are bringing back the possibility that, hey, a guy that was drafted in the first or second round isn't instantly good, might still have a career if you're patient, but so often we're looking for reasons to make sure they start week one, and then if they're terrible by Thanksgiving of the next year, on to the next. Bryce Young is a guy who looks like a bust right now, but maybe Bryce Young needs 3, 4, 5 years like other quarterbacks. We don't have that patience watching football, either working in football or watching football today.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, it's well said. And you have these guys where they're so physically gifted, they never had to learn that kind of footwork, right? Like I'll go to a more contemporary example that maybe is more in line with what Sam's, the rest of his career could look like. Geno Smith. Geno Smith put up ridiculous numbers at West Virginia in a statistically advantageous air raid type system, but his footwork was never there. It was sort of wild horse as far as that went. He went, speaking of ex-Jets, he was in a situation there where he was sort of left out to dry. And then you work on that footwork as you go along. You get to a better coaching staff. You get to a situation where there's playmakers around you and you're being put into a position to succeed. And all of a sudden, lo and behold, this guy's turned his career around when we just had to make some tweaks to that. The mechanics of them, and then have more experience with reading NFL style defenses when you're outside of like a college type air raid, and you can see the game flower out. I think that's what we're looking at with Sam.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, Kirk's name came up, and we've all seen the video breakdowns now. I almost feel like he's only 10 months removed from tearing his Achilles, and then the surgery happened a little while after. And if you would have asked most people, forget about contract logistics and whether or not he goes to a new team, should he be rushing to get back for week one of the 2024 season? I think most of us reasonably would have said, he might need to start the first month of the season on IR and just make sure that thing is healthy. But new team, big contract, his replacement drafted 8th overall. I wonder if even Kirk himself was just, hey, I don't want to lose my job out of the gate here and look like an idiot. So I'll get out there and let's figure this thing out. If it means we can't run the play action bootleg because I can't get to the outside with the condition of my Achilles. I just wonder what's going on there, Thor, because it doesn't look like a guy that's physically ready to be on a football field 10 months after tearing his Achilles.
No, Phil, you had to rush him back. It's not like you spent the 8th overall pick on a player at his position. What else are you going to...
I mean...
That might be the most incompetent organization that we have in the entire NFL, and I'm including the Panthers.
Wow.
The decisions that they make are utterly ludicrous. Last year, they leave the team out to dry by forcing them to start Desmond Mitter. They didn't have anybody else there. Desmond Mitter, I don't even think he's on an active roster right now.
Desmond Mitter, that's a great drive-by right there.
And then
Thor.
you give all your salary cap space to this guy who's coming off the injury, and then the 8th pick to Penix. And to your point, okay, so we go back to that week one game. Zach Robinson now the offensive coordinator there, and you're like, okay, this is an analytics guy, so he's not going to waste the Bijans and the Kyle Pittses that Arthur Smith was last year. So Zach Robinson is running a bunch of this pistol stuff so they can get like RPO looks off of it. But you can't do the RPO when they know that the quarterback is not going to run. It's not adding anything to the offense. So you're moving Cousins a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage. The defense knows that he isn't going to pull the ball and go around the end ever, or even do any bootlegs. You have him confined there into the pocket, and the system obviously was not working out well for him. That looks like an offensive system that was installed not for Kirk Cousins, but for Mr. Michael Penix. And now we're going to have the thing, and the Falcons apparently didn't think this thing through either. If Cousins struggles for another game or two, that home crowd is going to be screaming for Michael Penix, and it appears that the offense is suited for Penix as opposed to Cousins.
And this is a damn near a parallel to 2018. And in this case, Robinson is going full DeFilippo. If you remember,
Yeah.
Former
prodigy.
He got the job, and he said, I got a Pro Bowl quarterback here. We are going to go to work. We are going to dish up teams with my style of football. And Kirk's like, that's not what I like to do. And it was the same thing. But in this case, I think, Thor, where you have a very interesting point, and the conspiracy theory here is this seems to be a direct butting of heads somewhere about who wants whom at quarterback.
Yes.
You know, and I don't think the OC is going to go completely rogue unless somebody's told him it's okay to go rogue. So there's a lot of things here. But, I mean, Kirk should probably just not play the first month. But I don't think he's got the stomach to not do that because he's afraid to lose his job.
Let's just say hypothetically, physically, he's just not there. I mean, that's not a hypothetical. That's a reality. He's not. He should not be playing football right now, and that's not a knock. Like, dude, coming back as a 36-year-old quarterback 10 months after Achilles, like that you're rushing it. So he sits out for the next month because we rushed it. And Michael Penix comes in and lights it up, absolutely dials it up. That's a wrap, right? Like, you're not putting Kirk back in unless there's an injury. So that's the situation that they've sort of. But even on the flip side, if you would have said, you know what, let's IR Kirk, short-term IR for the first few weeks, and Michael Penix, I guess, will start week one. And the same thing could have happened just based on the timeline of the injury. So it is. By the way, I sadistically was curious this morning and last night. I flipped around to a couple of Falcons podcasts just to hear, like, how are they digesting what happened in week one? And man, just like a lot of Vikings fans, it was every reason except for the quarterback. Couldn't possibly be that he made some bad passes in some spots, right? It was the coordinator and the coach are incompetent and the offensive line is terrible and all these things. And the injury is a legitimate excuse, but it is funny how with Kirk, we always look for everything else around him as opposed to the quarterback himself for why something isn't operating the way that it should be.
You know what else is funny? Those people out there that were calling you guys Kirk haters all that time because you had the temerity to suggest that perhaps the Vikings should not delineate all their cap space to Kirk Cousins, maybe do a different roster construction. I didn't hear them much after week one. I don't know where those guys went. And yeah, to the point about the Falcons, again, that's a system for Penix. That the other thing that you've seen in the film there, not only in the pistol there, but they had Cousins with his feet together because when you're doing that RPO type stuff, the fake handoffs from that thing, you want the footwork like that so you can quickly get back, get the ball over. Cousins, as we know, he likes to set up in the shotgun with that left leg back and then swing the upper body over. Yeah. It's what he always did. The reason that he started earlier on and Kirk Cousins surprised people. That thing that we were talking about earlier in this episode about the mechanical stuff with Sam and with Geno Smith and some of these other guys, Steve Young, that they had to work through. Cousins had that thing early, and that's how he was able to fit into these offensive systems where the mechanics are so important and just sort of run the play as it's called, et cetera, make the correct decision, just get the ball out, don't do anything crazy. The Falcons, for some reason, with him coming off an injury, have decided to take that away from him and revamp the lower body mechanics. This thing is going to end in disaster. I don't know if it ends with Cousins on the bench or what's going to go on, but we're going to get some fighting here because the fan base doesn't agree with this whole thing. They're going to be screaming for Penix. The offensive coordinator seems to have a system that is set up for Michael Penix. The decision maker, obviously, after the signing of Kirk Cousins, giving all your cap space to him, goes out and drafts Penix. I don't know what was behind any of this stuff, but this is setting up to be a 30 for 30 movie that all of us will be sitting in front of the television watching.
Worst run teams right now: Falcons, Panthers, Giants. The Giants now, because and the Giants would like a word before you crown the Falcons, you crown their asses.
The Giants have entered the chat.
The Giants have entered the chat, and they gave Daniel Jones a contract extension based off one game against the team whose defense you knew was not good.
Thanks, Donato.
So I think Carolina would probably be 3 on the list. The Giants might be 2, the Falcons 1, but I think that's a very close race there between New York and Atlanta.
Yeah, the Falcons, it's both that you have people that aren't good enough for their jobs in those positions to make those decisions. Then you also have the thing of nobody is on the same page. Like where is all this stuff coming from? The coaching staff doesn't seem to be on the same page with management. Management does not seem to be on the same page as ownership. You have, I mean, the Penix and Cousins thing, that's where we need the movie on this thing in the future. So I still don't understand it. And it seems like we still have residual issues off that because the organization is not on the same page. So you have incompetent people that are not on the same page with one another. That's what you get here.
Yeah. Plenty more to come here on Thorsday, but we are all on the same page about Finch Home Solutions, Judd. Finch Home Solutions, definitely top 3 in the league for
top
whatever.
3 in the league. Number 1, any electrical need that you might have, guess what? Cody Finch and his team at Finch Home Solutions can solve it. And with the Vikings off to a nice start here, I got some exciting news. Finch Home Solutions is now a certified dealer and installer of gemstone lights, which are for permanent holiday lighting, which is awesome. But you're saying, sports dad, okay, that's great, but, and I'm going to tell you but nothing, because you know what? Permanent holiday lighting not only allows you to have those lights up professionally installed constantly so you don't have to go up there in the dead of winter, but you can also switch them around. So let's say the Vikings have a big game on Sunday, or heck, let's just say they have a game at night, turn the house purple. That's right, root on your favorite team with the colors of the purple. Finch Home Solutions. Check them out, finchhomesolutions.com, 612-357-2604. And make sure that you told them the guys from PD sent you to get that Vikings or to get that house with the Vikings lights before the game.
Yeah. Shout out to the exclusive personal injury law firm of Purple Daily. That would be Nicolay Law, which knows that when you or a loved one gets injured, ordinary life can come to a stop. Things can get complicated. That's where Russell Nicolay and his team come in. You may see him wearing the power suit, power tie here on the YouTube channel, but t-shirt, jeans, flannel, fear the flannel, fear the beard, the flannel. If you want to go by the actual mantra of Nicolay Law, they'll get you the compensation you deserve after an accident. So if you've been injured, get Minnesota's local award-winning injury lawyers. Get Nicolay, nicolaylaw.com, or give them a call at 1-855-NICOLAY. Also, the Dexter got the nice set of sticks from PXG in the mail over the weekend here. Very exciting.
Yeah, fall golf coming up. I'm super excited for that. Obviously, the PXG, go take the PXG Irons Challenge. It's a ton of fun. The new Black Op irons, they're awesome. If they don't outperform your current irons by delivering more distance and just better performance overall, you can get a $100 MasterCard rewards card. This offer does end October 7th, but go to pxg.com to book that fitting today.
Amen. Okay, Thor, before we get to things to keep an eye on for Vikings fans this college football weekend, I want to run a running back take by you that I floated to Doogie and these guys. I feel like, and if I'm wrong, you tell me, all right? I feel like we've gone way too far with the idea that running backs are just easily replaceable and you can just go find any random guy in the 5th round or whatever. Week 1, Joe Mixon runs for $150, $160, whatever it is, with his new team, the Texans. You had Saquon Barkley with his new team, the Eagles, 3 touchdowns, explosive runs, everything. And then you had Aaron Jones in purple, massive upgrade over what the Vikings had last year. And these are just dudes you can find for like under $10, $12 million. I'm going to pay $20 million for a guard. I'm going to pay $20 million for a high-end defensive back. And I can go get Aaron Jones, a top 10 running back, for 1 year and like $7 or $8 million, and boom, he's bouncing it out to the outside for a touchdown that Alexander Mattison never could have. I'm just saying, like, these dudes are just available. Tony Pollard, you can just go get 28-year-old. We've gone too far writing off 28, 29, 30-year-old running backs. That's my take.
Yeah, I think people conflate two opposite ideas. The reason that position became devalued is because you can find starters for cheaper, right? Whether that's later in the draft or whether that is for less free agent money, you can. It doesn't mean that position isn't important. right? And when you get that enormous you can't overstate the upgrade from Madison to Jones and what that does for the Vikings offense as a whole. It's still a position that is going to move the needle a bit for your offense, depending on the quality there. It's just that you can, identify guys like that or cobble it together without giving all your cap, to one dude. You can cobble that together with three guys with disparate skill sets sometimes, or in this case, the Vikings buying low on Aaron Jones, who the Packers just sort of gifted over. You didn't have to give a comp pick because he had been released. Get him on the cheap 1-year deal. He's going to raise the level of the offense a bit this year on the cheap. And then, well, we'll see what happens in the offseason. But yeah, it's not that it literally does not matter who is that running back. It's just that you can identify those guys and get them for a little bit less than the market value.
But, to go back to how stupid the Giants are, Saquon Barkley is a special player. Now he's at a position at which guys ordinarily don't get paid now, right? But how do you have a team look at Saquon, who, when I've watched him in person, is one of the most impressive guys in person because you realize he's so shifty and he's so good. How do you just devalue him? Like he is a Swiss Army knife type of player. And it's one thing to say, okay, this guy's got wear and tear, tread, I'm not going to give him a 2 or 3 year contract. But how do you look at Saquon Barkley and think, that's okay? Idiotic again.
I think it was so interesting. The Hard Knocks this year, they did the offseason one, and the Giants were the team where they were behind the closed doors. And Joe Shane, the GM there, it was very bizarre how he approached the Saquon Barkley thing, where it was basically like, hey, Saquon, you can go out there and we're not going to franchise tag you. You can go out and get offers and then bring one back to us. And hey, man, if you're as loyal to the team as you say, maybe you give us a little discount. It's like at that point, you are encouraging him to leave. And obviously a division rival there in the Eagles ends up swooping in. They put Saquon in a bad spot. And to your point, the value that he brought to that team, they weren't really recognizing either. It seems that the case of that, what my theory is, the management that decided to build around Daniel Jones, they gave them that. They are trying to prop up that decision because, to not make it look bad. So it's like, let's get the better offensive lineman. Let's give that top pick to the wide receiver position because we have to make Daniel Jones a thing. Let's funnel our resource into that. You forgot that the guy who was getting Daniel Jones a lot of those passing yards was on the shuttle downs to Saquon Barkley. So now they had their enormous downgrade at running back, and that offense looks rough.
Yeah, dude, man, that was such a classic first guess, too. It's like, why would they really? They're going to give that guy $40 million?
Yeah, and if you
away
watch
resources?
Those, in fact, Jones had a pretty good game at the end of 22 here and then had the good playoff game. Go back and watch those games and see, speaking of propping guys up, how much Saquon Barkley propped up Jones. I don't think they win the playoff game against the Vikings without the threat of Saquon.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, they needed that, both keeping defenses off Daniel Jones, but then also all the play designs that you could do with that and all the passing yards that he gave Daniel Jones just after the catch. Yeah, just a misunderstanding of where the offense, what was the good part of that offense. They have now taken that away, and that offense, you just have to basically lock in and throw balls to Malik Neighbors. They just have to figure out how to manufacture Malik Neighbors 200 touches this year. Everything within 5 yards of line of scrimmage, just break tackles. They don't have anything else. That team stinks.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to do 2 more things before the end of this Thorsday. One about. It's the Thor's college football junkie thing to watch this weekend for Vikings fans. And then we're going to add a new segment, if you're cool with it, called Thor's Hottest Fantasy Take on Thorsday here. So we'll give you a few minutes to think about that. But let's get Thor's college football junkie thing to watch for Vikings fans this weekend.
Got one thing for a game tomorrow, and then we'll go to Saturday. But on Friday, the Vikings receiving core, will they stay in 12 personnel going forward? And what is Jordan Addison? Is that a guy that you can rely on going forward? If the Vikings stay in 12 personnel going forward, of course, you only need the 2 starting wide receivers. We talked about how maybe Travis Hunter would be, sort of an interesting outside the box answer for the wide receiver 3 going forward. But if there is a change into wide receiver where they go back to 11 personnel full time in the future, or if they don't feel like they can trust Jordan Addison as the wide receiver 2, that's where Tedero McMillan from Arizona or Luther Burden from Missouri would get interesting. If you guys out there are free on Friday night, 7 p.m. kickoff on Fox, Arizona is heading to Kansas State, a team that has a pretty good defense. What can McMillan do to that defense in a game that should be wildly entertaining? I think it's something to keep an eye on. And then the other one I wanted to point out, our boy Walker, the planet-sized guy, the interior guy from Kentucky, Deion Walker, 6'6", 345 pounds, disruptive. Guess who Kentucky gets this weekend? The Georgia Bulldogs. Team is good in the trenches as anybody. Deion Walker needs to come out and not only be smashing heads, but getting into the backfield and doing stuff for Kentucky to be viable. They do interesting things with them. They move them around a little bit more than what you see with 6'6", 345-pound guys. I mentioned that last year they dropped him into coverage one time. He smoked a guy. The ball pops up in the air. They return it back. Deion Walker needs to have an enormous game against a very good Georgia offensive line for Kentucky to even keep this thing respectable. So that's in his marquee matchup of the year. That's something to keep an eye on.
I love those big guys, man. You know that. You know I love them.
Judd is like, man, if the Vikings could ever land a defensive player over 340 pounds, it would just be Judd's dream.
Tell you what, yeah, that would be awesome. Just a guy that swallows up the run. Like literally the running back disappears into the guy's body. And you just don't see him anymore.
And it's like a chicken wing, and then he just like takes the bone. You just see like the spine and skeleton
Gilbert
come out.
Brown, man. Yeah. Gravedigger.
And the Vikings, they were always the funnest when they had the awesome interior defensive linemen. You had the Williams Waugh, you had Randall, you had Hovan, Jerry Ball.
Jerry Ball.
Jerry Ball.
Love Jerry Ball.
Love Jerry Ball.
Yeah.
How aptly named was Jerry Ball?
Tremendous.
You look like a ball.
Yeah, tremendous. And of course, Pat Williams and those guys that you can put right over the center who can occupy multiple offensive linemen in the running concepts and have the linebackers flowing. That's what you get in Deion Walker. So he'd be a nod back to some of the next generation, of course, next evolution of that same idea. But the Vikings defense certainly could use it.
God, I think those guys are also like contractually obligated to bark at the line of scrimmage too, right?
I got no problem with that.
And Thor for fantasy stuff again. Matthew Berry's fantasy life. Thor has a million different places where you can find his fantasy work. Can we get like a nugget once a week from you? Just like a little. It doesn't have to be like your biggest take. Just like a fantasy appetizer? Nugget of some kind, like a fantasy appetizer.
Yeah, so one I could say is Luke McCaffrey, who, if people go back and watch our spring episodes where we did the mock drafts and everyone, as you guys know, what was it, 2 straight months I was taking Luke McCaffrey with the Vikings 7th round pick every single draft we did for those mock drafts at the end of the thing. The NFL ended up seeing McCaffrey sort of like I did, and he ends up being the last pick of the 3rd round. He was one of my top rookie fantasy football sleepers this season because he steps into a starting role on a team that Cliff Kingsbury offense. They're going to be putting the ball in the air. Enormous upgrade at quarterback going to Jaden Daniels. So I've been stumping for McCaffrey. The first game, his stats didn't look the best. I think it was 3 catches for 31 yards. But in context, you have to stay with him. McCaffrey had more receiving targets than any other Washington receiver in that game. He had more receiving yards than any other Washington receiver. All 3 of his targets he converted into catches. I think the other guys, they were like 50%. It was like 4 for 8 if you combine the rest of the Washington receivers. The stats were down in the first game because Jaden Daniels struggled to throw. You saw a lot more of the scrambling and then the dump offs. When Jaden Daniels gets more comfortable behind the line there, you're going to see more of the pass going to the receivers. They have already tipped off to you that Luke McCaffrey is a bigger part of that than the public realizes. Of course, they had traded off Jahan Dotson to the Eagles about a month ago. So that opened the door wide open for Luke McCaffrey. Once that passing game improves, they get more of the passing yards out of Jaden Daniels. There's a lot of that stuff's going to be going to Luke McCaffrey. So I just, if you own him, hold. If he's on your free agent wire, he is worth a look. Again, got more of the targets than any other receiver there, receiving yards and receptions in the first game.
All right, Thor, question for you. Of your 2 favorite football sons, JJ McCarthy, Luke McCaffrey, I tell you right now that you can only free one of them from a hostage crisis. Which of those 2 do you decide to go with?
I'm getting Ed McCaffrey and Christian McCaffrey on a conference call and saying, boys, I'm so sorry. You're on your own. JJ, come on out.
You
We're
got
going
bloodlines,
home.
you'll figure it out.
You're
Yeah.
taking JJ home.
Going home, JJ.
I just
Luke,
want to make that very
by the
clear
way-
because you love Luke McCaffrey.
Another
I
guy,
love him.
another guy that we mocked religiously to the Vikings in our 7-round mocks with Thor was Arkansas center Bo Limmer, and
Yeah.
dude, that dude was like playing the entire second half for the Rams in that game in Week 1.
I didn't understand why the NFL overlooked Bo Limmer like they did. I mean, like a guy that started for years in the SEC and was a former teammate of McLaughlin there in the SEC at Arkansas. But Limmer, he had the length, he had the athleticism, he had the body of work in the SEC. Sometimes the NFL, for whatever reason, and sometimes it's just a positional thing, right? Like at center, Limmer had the guard versatility as well. But like some teams, they're just not looking at that. And so you end up filtering down. They end up preferring a different guy for their scheme. But yeah, it was a guy that we thought was going to be a steal, and it looks early on like that's the case.
Yeah, amazing stuff.
Football.
Judd, Padrigs, man, we had a really fun Purple Daily Unplugged event about a month ago at Padrigs, and or Porrigs if you are from the native Irish land.
Well, you know what?
Porrigs.
Yes, that's true. You say Porrigs, I say Padrigs, but you know what we can all
Padrigs.
agree on? They make beer that tastes like beer. That is universal. And we pronounce it beer. A local craft brewery recreating Irish.
Clarification.
Just for clarification, you call it Porrigs, I call it Padrigs, but they make great beer and we all pronounce it. We all love the same thing. And
Beer.
that's beer. Irish and UK classics are being recreated as well as some delicious craft beers. This stuff is, I've told you, this stuff is great. Session beer, which is just great. They also have a red. In fact, at our Twins event last night, somebody asked me, what's a red exactly? This is how long reds have been gone. Like red beers in the 90s, they were fantastic, but they sort of disappeared while at Porrigs/Padrigs, they have not disappeared. They're alive and well. So definitely check them out. Available in more than 80 liquor stores in the metro area. Find them on Facebook or Instagram or go to their website, Padrigs.com, Padrigs.com. Telling you, official beer of the sports dad because it's delicious.
Yes.
Football.
Amen. All right, Thor. Great stuff here today. A great Thorsday, I think, was had by all here today.
Go JJ
Always-
McCarthy.
Always a good time. And yeah, JJ McCarthy, by the way, was nipping on the heels of the Sam Darnold we saw on Sunday. Everyone keep that in mind when you're thinking about the future. It could have been crazy. But yeah, always great talking to you guys. And we'll talk to you next week. And hopefully the Vikings will still be undefeated when we do so.
Love it, man. There he is, Thor Nystrom from Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life platform. Every Thursday here on Purple Daily. Daily Vikings entertainment. We have a bonus episode coming out too, so keep an eye on that. Judd's notes from practice. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die around here.